Welcome to Thomistic Womanhood. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Beauty, Truth, and Goodness series. We're going to continue on it, and in this video, we're going to talk about what I'm calling the domestic goddess. This is a term, this is a phrase, it's a very old phrase, and this relates to the importance of having certain domestic skills. Men look for this in a woman, and if you want to instantly set yourself apart from, different women, if you are beautiful and attractive and you understand him and you're a good conversationalist, that's great. But if you can't boil water and your home's a mess, then a guy's going to look at you and be like, do I really want to marry her? Do I really want to start something permanent with this woman? Because men, I know it's old-fashioned, I know after feminism it's like, oh, well, women are more than domestic drudgery and whatever, but these are still things that men expect of a woman, and they're things that, I think we can all appreciate, need to get done around a home. Even if you're single, living at home, these are things that have to get done. So it's important to know how to do them. So when I say domestic goddess, we're going to cover kind of 3 areas, actually 4. So one is cooking, obviously. The second is cleaning. The third is what I'm going to call like time management for a household. This is different than how time management is traditionally kind of marketed and talked about. And then the last thing is kind of like decorating and adding touches. I just thought of this as we're talking, but we're also going to talk about some basic like sewing skills. Like, can you sew on a button? Can you mend a tear in your skirt? Things like that. So anyways, cooking. First thing, number 1, cooking. Learn to do this. They say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and it's very true. So you do need to know how to cook. Now, it doesn't have to be fancy. This is not like Food Network level stuff. You don't have to be, Martha Stewart whipping up some, 20 ingredient amazing thing. The secret to good food, I like to cook. I've cooked a lot. And the secret to good food is you want to have good ingredients and you want to have like a good method. What is the chef or the person who made this recipe? What is their, mentality toward cooking? Like, what method do they usually use? Do they cut corners? Do they use a lot of processed stuff? Are they heavy on the salt? What is their approach to cooking? So you want to pick recipes. You can go to somewhere like recipes.com, or you can just Google, a recipe for something. Watch Food Network if you want, but I'm going to warn you, if you're going to watch Food Network or watch some of these, YouTubers, because these people are basically using food as entertainment, which there's nothing wrong with that, they are going to have a built-in incentive to make it complex. So the food that you're watching, they're usually not going to give like simple recipes, because simple doesn't sell. People don't watch, like spaghetti sauce. You can make spaghetti sauce with like 4 ingredients. People don't watch somebody making 4 ingredient spaghetti sauce because that's not very interesting. So keep that in mind. So be careful if you want to like watch cooking shows or whatever. I'm talking for basics. Now, if you are very confident in the kitchen and you like to cook, then disregard that advice. You have at it and cook whatever you want, great. But for those of you that are, maybe you're young, this is your first time on your own, maybe you just got out, you left home, went to college. For you that need to know the basics, this is what I'm talking about. Like I said, Google a recipe, go on recipes.com, find the ones that have a lot of stars that are really highly rated, because then you know that it's going to be good, it's going to taste good, and you're not going to like mess up your effort. It kind of sucks to like put in the work to make something and then you taste it when it's all done and you're like, oh, it's not that good, So that's not very fun. But so there are certain basic meals that I think every woman should know how to make, and they're basic things that you can make them and you look like you know what you're doing without much effort. So for breakfast, learn how to make a good oatmeal. And I don't mean just, getting like some Quaker oats, but make the oatmeal, and then, you want to add toppings. The secret is toppings, So when you cook your oatmeal, maybe put apple on it on top, cut up some apple, put that on top, put cinnamon on top, maybe cut up some walnuts, put that on top as well. And then, you've got like a nice, you got a nice bowl of oatmeal that's going to have a lot of flavors in your mouth. You're going to taste the apple. You're going to taste the oatmeal, which is going to be a little bland, and then you're going to have the apple and the cinnamon and the walnut, and you're going to have different textures and tastes, and it's going to go really good. Scrambled eggs, that's another one. Scrambled eggs are very simple to make. Buy some eggs at the store, buy some milk, get some cheese, get some pico de gallo is a good thing. It's not salsa, it's basically chopped up jalapenos, onions, and tomatoes. Get those things, go home, and then crack like 2 eggs in a bowl, put a few tablespoons of milk in it, whip it together with a fork, and then mix in a little bit of the pico de gallo. You mix it all together and you make kind of like this eggy soup, and then you pour it into a hot pan and you scramble it up. Watch a video on how to make scrambled eggs and then just do that recipe, and then you just mix it up, and it's pretty fast. It only takes like 5 minutes. And you get a nice scrambled egg breakfast. So that's good. Omelets are a little harder. I would say that's kind of a more like level 2. Scrambled eggs, that's good. It's basics. And with you have like the pico de gallo in it. When you're done, serve the scrambled eggs on a plate, and then maybe sprinkle some of the pico de gallo on top. And then, you look like you know what you're doing, and it tastes really good. The cheese, that was the other thing. So yeah, put the cheese inside, then you got like a nice cheesy scrambled egg, and you got the pico de gallo in with it. And again, you've got the different textures and you got something going on there. So that's good. Lunch, hamburger. Know how to make a hamburger. Fry up a patty. If you're vegan, totally cool. Get a bean patty, get a non-meat patty, get a vegan patty and fry that up. Learn how to do that. Learn basic cooking hygiene. When you're cooking meat, you don't want to get like meat, blood, or anything on your cutting table or cutting board that you get with like vegetables. Wash your hands after it. So you want to kind of have some of that basic hygiene down. But yeah, learn to fry a hamburger, learn to make a simple salad. Salads don't have to be super complex like potato salad or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Buy a bag of spring mix at the store, get some tomatoes, get some mushrooms, cut that all up, put it in a bowl, get like some balsamic vinegar, sprinkle that on top. Then you have a nice salad, so then you got hamburger and salad. Like, that's a nice lunch. Dinner, spaghetti, learn how to make spaghetti. It's pretty easy. For basics, you can go to the store and get, maybe go in like the organic section or like Trader Joe's where they have like really nice food, and get a nice tomato sauce, in like a jar. If you're too intimidated to like cook it from scratch, get a really nice jar version of it, and then get some spaghetti, like the noodles, and then come home, boil the noodles, dump the spaghetti sauce on top, and you have a nice meal there. With the salad that you learn how to make for lunch, you can serve the salad with that, and then you got a nice meal. The last thing that I think is really good and every woman should know how to cook is like a pot roast. You gotta make some kind of meat and potatoes. Learn how to do that. Now, the easiest way to do that is you get a crock pot, just Google pot roast. Google how to make a pot roast in a crock pot. And there'll be plenty of recipes on how to do that. You just buy a chunk of meat. You can buy like French onion soup. There's certain recipes where you just buy a can of soup and you put the meat in the crock pot, you pour the soup over it, you put in a few other ingredients, and then you turn on that crock pot. You cut up some potatoes and carrots, you put that in there with it, and then you shut the lid and you turn on the crock pot. And the way it works is it's gonna actually get really hot, and it's gonna cook that pot roast in there. It's gonna cook that meat over 4 or 5 hours. And then when it's all done, it'll kind of beep, and then you open it up and it's all cooked. And you don't even have to do anything. So that's a really good thing. Men love meat and potatoes, so that's a really easy way to do that. So those are just some quick ideas, some thoughts on cooking. Again, it's really crucial. That is something men really, really love about women. If you can cook, that's great. And cooking well is not about technique. It's not about having like some French souffle or something. It doesn't have to be fancy. Cooking well is, again, get good ingredients, that are gonna taste good. You can have the best recipe in the world, but if you're using like cruddy raw ingredients, maybe the eggs are a little spoiled, or the cheese has been out a little too long, or it'll make the whole dish not taste good. And try to stay away from processed food. I know that's hard, but you want to eat clean. Things that, when you eat a little cleaner, you don't want to put a lot of processed food or maybe too much butter, too much dairy. Now, don't get me wrong, a little butter and dairy can be good, and that can really flavor your food. But if you drench it in salt, if you drench it in butter, if you drench it in, cream and things like that, sometimes you can mask the flavors of what you're actually cooking with, and then you can have a more bland meal and it can backfire a little bit. So that's why you want to kind of cook with, a little bit cleaner, fruits, vegetables, meat, and so things like that. Cooking is really important. I do a lot of research for this channel, and I was watching a channel that's geared toward men, and it's basically like, relationship and life advice for men. And this guy, he's got a huge following. If I mentioned his name, you probably would have heard of him, but he was talking about like 7 things in, a woman, that a man needs in a woman. And one of the things was cooking. And would you believe, it was him and his friend, they were kind of doing a podcast, and they were talking about this, and he was telling his friend about how much cooking like means to a man. And would you believe, this guy, grown adult man, he was sitting here and he goes, man, there's just something about when a woman cooks and she's got that plate of food and she just puts it in front of you and you hear the plate kind of like rattle on the table and it's just done. And he was like, I just appreciate it so much. And he literally teared up when he was talking. He was like, I appreciate it so much. Like, he literally, like, his voice started cracking because it meant so much to him to have a woman cook for him. Men really appreciate that. Men are very busy. They're usually on the go because they're so goal oriented. They get in their head and they're just on the go, and they don't really take time to eat well. When you cook, you want to know a little bit about nutrition and stuff. But yeah, men, they get in this rut and they don't really eat well. They don't take the time to eat well. And so that is something a woman can bring to a man's life that is really, really valuable. So anyways, cooking, it's good. Learn how to do it. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't overthink it. Learn a few basic recipes and you'll be fine.